Hola community, welcome to Blender Today episode 219. Today I have a little change in the setup. I made the threads for Q&A myself, and I included the output of a script that I made to spit out all the 100 commits that happened in last week, and so you can find pretty much every link there. I'm not going to go through all 100 changes this week, but I will try to cover the ones that are most relevant to me, I think. Thanks for the thumbs up in the chat. If the audio is okay, if everything is okay, we're gonna get to it right away. So if you go to Blender.Today, you can already check the questions thread already in VSE retiming. That's the name of today's episode, which is pretty exciting already on its own. But let's see what else is new. Announcements. Actually, we have the biggest announcement in terms of development from involving the community. If you are not familiar with what the Google Summer of Code is, it's the reason why we have many great features in Blender today, why we have amazing developers that got started with a Google Summer of Code project and then became like permanent developers now, like core developers of Blender. So the program is organized by Google. Basically, they just throw money at organizations that develop open source in order to give a number of students a number of projects to work on during the summer, and they not all of them make it, unfortunately. Depending on how strict is the team behind it, or the code, maybe it was too complex. So usually you get a lot of great outcomes, but the projects have not been announced actually. So the contributor applications will open on March 20. So there is still time. On March 20, that is Tom's birthday. So that's a great birthday gift for the contributors application to start. Okay, other than that, I think we are I wanted to mention there is a new blog post on about procedural hair nodes. It's in the studio.blender.org website. This studio website, remember the assets themselves, they're under a paywall, but not the blog post. The blog is just knowledge that the studio shares with the world. And in this case, we have Simon Thomas, which is responsible for some of the node groups that were included in Blender as of last week. Remember, in the new included asset bundle essentials in Blender 3.5 beta. These setups were also worked on together with Daniel Beistet and with people from all over the community at the Geometry Nodes channel on Blender.chat. So it's pretty interesting if you want to go check it out, because it goes into detail and all the work behind the decisions taken for this bundle to make it into Blender. You don't not only get a description, but also why. And also, is it possible to be fixed and improved in the future? And yep, most certainly yes. What is left to do? Well, plenty of things to prepare for the nodes to be ready until the actual release. So from now until the release. Feel free to give feedback, please. I think 2 comments only for this amazing write-up and work. It's not enough. I'm gonna give love, but I need to be logged in first. Then there, love, instant love, one click of a button. Other than that, I think we're ready to start with what's new in Blender. And again, I added all of the links here. This is what the script that I made spits out of Blender. So it's a bit more than what you would like maybe. But I made myself a roundup of a collection of the changes. Among them are, well, they're sorted by order now. So they by alphabetical order. So first we have the animation section, and there is a couple changes, mainly in, one in the paste keys or the paste operator for the graph editor that now includes the value offset. You can define the offset for pasting those keys. So you can choose no offset, the cursor, so it goes in the same position as the copied keys, cursor value, current frame value, so where your current frame is, or the right key, the right mouse key, or the left mouse key. So better pasting altogether for the graph editor. Thank you, Chris. The next change, also by Chris, is adding the slider operators to the hotkey menu. So before that patch, this patch, the slider operators for the graph editor are not easily accessible since they don't have a hotkey. This adds the D hotkey for the already existing slider operator menu. Using the pop-up menu means that the last used operators will always be under the cursor, so it's quick to access, which is nice to perform the action multiple times. Next, it's the curves section of this week. We have a micro optimization on the calculating offsets for example, when every time the topology of non-polycurves change, and this has been slightly updated, like 0.5 milliseconds of the total of 0.9. So more than half. It's good. Tools. Folk added cursor snapping support to curves. So more of getting the curves workflow more in line with regular curves and the old legacy curves and regular mesh editing. And proportional editing has been fixed. This wasn't working properly apparently on the new curves object. It is now. In cycles, there is two changes, one for everyone and one for Apple users. One of them is the ones for everybody. It's a reducing memory usage, which is awesome. This allows you, the less memory you use, the better, because your scenes can be more complex. You can put them in the graphics card. So pretty neat. The change basically reduces the scene, the memory that it uses, and also uploading to the graphics card faster. And uploading is not uploading online, but uploading from your system all the way to the graphics card, so the graphics card can do stuff, calculate it, and then send it back. So that will be faster, especially when you have more than one GPU, and this will affect it. So having some mate. That is all for everyone, but Apple Silicon users, M1, M2, and M3, whenever that happens, will be happy to know that now Nano VDV support was added. So again, more work by Apple on getting Apple Silicon or Metal in general to support what Blender cycles already supports for other platforms. Always good. Nano VDV, remember, is the VDV, like the volumes, the things for rendering volumes in Blender. Well, then I have a bunch of sections that are just like one item. For example, there is geometry nodes. There is the also another tiny micro optimization in the delete node. I'm gonna call it micro. It's 2 milliseconds out of total of 12. So yeah, it's small, but it's average. I will call it average. In some cases, huge. The next change, it's a fix on the gizmo, like in the UI, the gizmos such as the light gizmos for point lamps, for spot lamps. Well, it could happen that the radio, for example, was scaled all the way to 0, and you couldn't scale it back because when Blender detected a size of 0 for the gizmo, it wouldn't draw it in to perform for better performance. In this case, now this has been addressed, so it will be possible even with 0 size to scale back. Otherwise, you would go down and then you couldn't go back, couldn't return to bigger radius. That has been fixed. Then regarding mesh editing or like mesh drawing in general, the mesh editing, so the algorithm to merge vertices Apparently there is two algorithms being used in Blender. One of them is it's called BK Mesh, like Blender Kernel Mesh Vertex, and there is another one that was introduced much later. And the simpler one, the old one, that is getting replaced seems to be really fast, but it doesn't work really well with like results that would create new faces, for example. It doesn't really support it. So this has been replaced with the newer one, which is faster in some cases, well, in most cases, when the merge geometry, like the merge result, is not a huge percentage of the entire of your mesh. So, which is what happens, for example, if you have a character, an entire character that you have a mirror modifier, where mirror is the merge of the two sides, it's only using a part of the geometry compared to the rest of the geometry, then you should see an improvement in performance. Although if everything, I don't know, if you merge a large part of your mesh, then yeah, the performance improvement is lost. And in some cases even slower, but in most cases it should be faster and more unified as well. So it's good to reuse algorithms, so when one algorithm gets improved, it affects everything and everyone. In other areas and subdivision, well, kind of mesh related, there's also a micro optimization, huge, more than average. So in the subdivision, basically with a test of 2 million faces or 3 million vertices, it saves around 2.8, nearly 3 milliseconds, for a total of 700. So small again, but every little bit helps. Metal. Okay, we're back to metal, but in this case, Eevee. And not only for Apple Silicon. Actually, this is not for Apple Silicon at all. This is an improvement for AMD Eevee. We don't see this often, and especially lately. And sometimes we get comments about being unhappy of that Apple is putting so much work into making Apple Silicon work, because all the news are about Apple Silicon. But it's because Apple Silicon was so behind, I think, that now it's catching up. That's why it feels like you get more news. But it's cool to see that Apple developers are still looking after the performance of their AMD computers, graphics cards, which are still like the Mac Pro is only AMD, right? The bigger, more high-end machine they have at the moment. Although the studio is often fast in some cases. Okay, more of related to nodes. Yeah, this is a bit of everything. In this case, we have, for example, one change in the nodes. This is a change that at the moment only it covers one fix, one case where users were reporting that they couldn't find the mix node anymore. We would search for mix and they couldn't get the mix color options anymore. So with an internal change in the search operations in Blender, in the node editor, apparently this has been fixed, but also this could in the future make it so we could have more keywords to search for nodes. So you can search for, well, it's not implemented yet, but if in the future this would allow for having more keywords. So for example, well, some already work. Like if you search for subsurface scattering, if you search for SSS, you get subsurface scattering because it's the first letter of each word, and that is covered by fuzzy search. But this could be different words for, I don't know, like synonyms for the word sky. I don't know, some things like that. Okay, next. Lucio, do you drink mate with sugar? No, mate with sugar is a blasphemy. In my country, I would get no sugar, bitter, like oneself. Next, outliner, yay. The crisp pencil objects now are part of the filter, so you should see it. I happen to have a blender here that I downloaded from the build, but although this was, no, this is from 5 hours ago, so I'm not gonna have this in this build because I got it from the build, so it's from last night. So you should see a option here to filter grease pencil objects, and if I don't covering it with my ugly, okay, there you go. So in here you should see grease pencil objects, so you can filter them out, which is great for 2D animation and for storyboarding. This change was done 5 hours ago, so remember, if you get your builds from BuildBot, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. Usually they're built around 3:30 AM in Universal Time, UTC, but yeah. Other than that, we can move into the next section. Okay, sculpting actually has a bunch of changes. I think we can cover them somewhere here. So in Sculpt, there is a bunch of changes. Some of them are fixes, some of them are duplicates. I think in my script I need to remove duplicates for some reason. I think they still get confused, but the changes are as follow. First, add support for last operator panel to color filter operator. So whenever you do, you apply the color filter, you can redo that operation and you can change the settings from the viewport itself after applying it, which is great. So you don't have to, because sometimes, well, the color filter operator also depends on how much you drag the mouse for the influence of the operator. So it's cool that you can redo it easily. Then I'll add trim orientation to Sculptbox trim UI. Super nice, trim orientation. Actually, this setting wasn't being exposed. Apparently, if you look at the code, it was just not exposed. So yeah, trim orientation is now exposed. The fixes have to do, one of them, topology auto masking errors. So this wasn't working properly. I think calculating the islands wasn't working properly. Another fix is that clicking over an empty space, so in the viewport, it would push an undo step. So you would end up using your precious undo steps. And if you have a limited amount of steps, then yeah, you could lose work. So good that it has been fixed. Another fix is that the data transfer was not respecting vertex groups for float colors. It is now. And the mesh filter operator now supports canceling. So you can press escape in the middle of the operation to stop from operating. Is that a word? Okay, the next change, this is from last week. It's a VDM textures improvement, but it's just a workflow that I already mentioned last week when VDM textures was implemented. So raise your hand if you use the VDM textures stuff already in Blender, the feature. Have you tried them already? Have you made your own VDM maps? I know the process for making VDMs at the moment is quite convoluted, but it is possible. I've seen Julian Kaspar at the office explaining that process. Convoluted, it requires some modeling in a specific plane, and then in that plane you have to, I don't know, he was using like a shape key and then flatten the whole mesh and then baking that. So I think there are ways to make that faster, but I bet that he is going to write about it or something maybe in the blog post, in a blog for the documentation or for the studio blog, probably on the documentation. He is involved also in the documentation of Sculpt mode. The next changes are related to the UI, the U and the I. This is my favorite change of the week. It's subtle. You're not gonna notice maybe unless you have a good eye for UI. A good eye for UI. In the UI lists, widget. So in shape keys, vertex groups, materials, everything that has a list in Blender, you probably never noticed that there was no hover effect. Unlike in everywhere in Blender that you can hover and you get this effect. Well, now there is. Such a small thing, I know. My favorite change of the week. This, you wouldn't believe how much discussion this got, because it's a small thing, but the UI code in Blender, apparently it's a mess. So whenever these changes happen, I think it was more like unifying the widget code and the widget design. In the future, ideally, this would be unified with this, because this is also a list, right? It's like a view item. So the styling of this in the code, it's quite... actually, you can't edit the styling of this from the preferences, from the theme. You have to go and edit the XML file or via Python access it. It's called view item. But yeah, that is all because of a discussion of if we should unify this list with this list, with this list, which would make sense, right? They're lists, they're widgets. Anyway, the other UI change, also by Harley, it's to make it so when you have long names in the UI and you also have, for example, the library name, where when you have a linked object and it shows the library, like where it comes from, in that case, Blender would trim both. It would try, even though if there was space in the UI, it would trim the length of both strings, so you will end up with like, yeah, a very useful label there, both being trimmed. So now I think with this fix, if Blender can find some space for this menu drop down, it will make some room for it and show as much information as possible. So yay. Another fix, well, not a fix, actually, it's an improvement in the UI list, but also, but actually only limited to the bone groups. So talking with Hjalti at the studio, we both had, you know, the Mandela effect, when you think that something is in a way and you can like, no, of course that was this way, and I bet if I go back I'm gonna see it and it was that way. But actually we were talking about how bone groups, like to see the color of a bone group, you had to click on each bone group and then you could see the colors underneath. And we both would like swear, but like, wasn't it in Blender 2.7 or in 8 or like that you could see at a glance the colors? And it was like, we were both like, yeah, of course you could. Otherwise you had to click each time to see it. So I went ahead and looked at the code and nope, no, it was never done that way. So I gave it a try and I implemented this little thing, which is very usual that we do these kind of things. We don't have anywhere in Blender, to my memory, anywhere in Blender a drop-down menu inside of a UI list. So it is a bit weird. However, I prefer weird and useful than not at all, because what you see here is basically a drop-down that allows you to select the bone group color set, and at a glance you can see which one is affected. And if it's custom, because Blender can't draw custom icons, the only way possible was to just draw one like little icon and then give you the options. Also in the past you would see the colors, but you couldn't change them because these are saved on your user preferences. There is 20 color sets that you can set in your user preferences. So now it only shows you if you can actually edit them, which is better, I think, in the video. Other than that, I think this would help to see it at a glance. Again, not very common. It looks a bit ugly, to be honest, but I think it helps. And again, it's super easy. If you look at the code, if you ever want to make these changes, please go ahead. If you look at the code, it's really not that it's easy to do. It's just sometimes you need to see it to understand it. Copy pasting is your friend. All right, you know what else is your friend? When you can cancel things. So the changes coming to the asset shelf, the asset browser in Blender, that you can drag and drop stuff from some windows into Blender for like the 3D view or the video sequence editor, made it so people started using the asset browser as a floating window. However, it could happen, or like the file browser, if you open it, you can drag and drop stuff. However, when you press, if you're dragging something and you press escape, instead of escaping the dragging, Blender would both escape the dragging of that asset, but also close the window. So resulting in a very frustrating experience. This has been fixed. So now when you have a floating window, drag and not drop yet the asset and cancel, you would only cancel the dragging, but it's not gonna close the window. Yay. All right, another huge one. And for this one, I'm actually going to get into the pipe sound, and then another huge improvement in terms of Blender interoperability in the industry. Because as of when was this? 1 day ago. Also, yes, 1 day ago. This is Sunday. Why are people working on? Yeah, Sunday. Why are people? Anyway, on since Sunday, Blender can now export USDZ. So USD is the zip version of USD, which we mentioned a few weeks ago that Blender could import USDC, but now it can export USDC as well. So more of this interoperability is coming into place. This is a huge improvement in general for Blender and the USD workflow. So I hope people find it useful. This is a group effort of many people: Charles, Sonny Campbell from Unity, and Bastian. But thanks people for working on this interoperability. So there is more details here about how it works and how it should work. The USD files inside the USDZ archive will have the same directory structure. For example, if one tries to create a file at this address, when the USDZ is created, inside it will have the file structure like that. So it tries to follow it as much as possible. Cool. What is USD? It's Universal Scene Description. It's a format that is pretty popular in the industry for moving files from one app to another, and it's like a blend file that works across many, different than a blend file, but you get the idea. Is that you can move files around in different applications, and they all should talk to each other. And of course, they didn't implement their own version, so that's why it's taking so long to implement. Okay, two more changes. One, a small one for Windows users. Well, actually not a small one, because I use this all the time on Linux, and I didn't know that this wasn't working on Windows. So I think you Windows users are going to be excited about this one. Have you ever run into working with multiple Windows, and then having it autofocus when you mouse over from one to the other? Well, now auto raise and focus windows on hover has been implemented. So on the Windows platform, raise windows and give them focus as the mouse hovers on them. This allows keyboard shortcuts for the area under the mouse without having to click the window caption to make them active. So on Linux, this is optional. This is a Windows setting that you change. So I'm curious about how I don't know if this is following any change. Oh, sorry for the blinding. It blinded me as well, but I remember seeing a picture of this with like a, what was it? There was an image that you could, maybe it was down here. No. Anyway, there was a video, an image. Basically, you have two windows, you move the mouse from one to the other. When was this implemented? 2 weeks ago, but the commit is actually newer than that. The commit is from 5 days ago. Well, I'm on Windows, and I have here a, let's see if it happens automatically. Yep. So if I do Shift A and then Shift A, yeah. So this is what happens. So you basically have two windows, and whenever you move the mouse to one and the other, it will make it in focus. And I don't know how Windows people have lived without this for so long. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's the first thing I do. It's like the sloppy focus. Again, this is only going to be in like in Blender. It's not going to affect other windows, other applications. So it's only within the Blender ecosystem. And also of a single instance. So if you have multiple Blenders, like different versions of blenders, this will only affect the windows that, like the child windows of the main Blender instance. So yeah, awesome. What else? All right, that was good news for Windows users. This is good news for everyone using the video sequence editor, which is VSE retiming tool. And for this, I can probably just show you here because this was committed 6 days ago by Richard. So yeah, this is it's a tool, it's a new tool, as in a tool that's in the toolbar, that allows you to change the strip playback by manipulating the retiming handles. More handles can be added to a single strip to create variable playback speed. So you can actually change the playback speed within a strip. And we're going to see a demo now in a moment. So this replaces the speed factor and the property in the time panel with the exception of sound strips. So support for sound strips is still in review. How does it look? Well, let's see it in action. So I'm going to open Blender in the video editing workspace. Let me add an image. Let's see. So I have some videos here. Let's add this one. So I happen to have a video of a window of a capture of Blender, of the Blender website. So this is running just in the usual, like, real time. Then there is a new tool here that you can see. It's called Retime. The tool, once selected, is going to show you. You're gonna be able to tell because there is like a little plus icon here. And let's make this more pretty by showing thumbnails. Okay, it's a bit also more unreadable because of the thumbnail, but there's this plus little icon that once you click on it, it will add like a mark, okay. This adds a number here that shows you the speed of this chunk of the strip. The strip is still 1, actually. You can move it around and it's still 1. But now this shows you that this is 100%. 100% of what? Of the total speed. So if you want it to be like, I don't know, twice as fast, you would just move it to be 200. And I don't think we have like, there is a shortcut on other software. I think DaVinci Resolve has it like on the R key, which you press R and you insert a number and it does the exact same thing. So right now you have this handle that you're moving around. So patience. Once you set it to that, basically that's it. Now it's gonna go twice as fast. And then you can continue adding these strips and then moving them around to make something slower. For example, here you go to like half the speed. It's gonna slower, much slower. So this goes twice as fast, and then it goes half as fast. Then the same applies to the other strips. In this case, the movie strip is easier to see, but this is pretty nice to see. Again, things, if you can, if you click, well, if you move the mouse over this tiny triangle down there, it shows like a little knife where you can cut that and remove the retiming handle. But other than that, you just click and drag. So improvements on here, it's, yeah, I think snapping would be pretty cool, and having it that you can input the values manually, because as far as I can see here, you can't. Is there tool settings? No. No tool settings either. Still, this was just added right now, and it's pretty cool to see it working like this. I'm a bit worried though that the plus icon is not visible when you have the thumbnails. I think in this case, it doesn't help to show it in like half transparent. I think it should be just full color. I mean, if you're in the retime tool, you're okay with seeing a bit of and also it only shows in the active strip, so I would show it full color, I think. And maybe in the same color as these strips, because this will make a connection between them. What do you think? Pretty cool. I don't know. I love it. This is it. This is the retime tool. Leave any feedback or love or emojis. It's pretty exciting to see the video sequence editor getting some love, like Ramith mentions here in the chat. I'm reading the chat, by the way. Okay, I think I got everything covered. Let's see how many questions are in the thread. So 13 questions. Let's go into the list. Got a bit longer. All right, so this entry, the first one, my free mind says, "Hey, Pablo." I'm gonna serve some mate in the meantime. Need something warm. Mondays are like, after not talking in the whole weekend, Mondays are. A while ago, you said that you're okay with when canceling extrusion, it would only cancel the move action. Yeah. Yeah, because the operator is called move, extrude and move. I've been teaching Blender in the Arts Academy, and I can assure you that it's not good. It's very unintuitive, and almost every student has stumbled upon a problem because of this. For example, they ask me, why isn't the bevel modifier working? And it's always because they have duplicate vertices after they cancel the extrude at some point. I don't even have to check before answering this because this is incredibly common. So yeah, canceling extrude should cancel the extrude. It should be so. If you want a 0 distance to extrude, you type 0 and apply. Yes. However, the operator should be changed then, because it's not move. So it should be renamed, or it should basically, it should be a different operator. But also, if you're teaching, you can also teach that part at the beginning. It's like, hey, extrudes and moves. Although, if everybody runs into it, it's either because it wasn't explained or because it's not intuitive, and you shouldn't have to read a manual to use something so simple as extrusion, right? So yeah, this would be pretty cool. Although it's quite a disruptive change. So something for Blender 4.0, I would assume, something that, because it changes workflow a lot. Like having the extrude. If you're used to extrude, like extrude, cancel, and then scale, for example, to do this, you'll have to change your workflow. You have to, like, if you extrude, if I extrude and then I cancel the extrude. If I extrude and then what? Press 0 and then enter. Yeah. Or I can actually, now that I think of it, maybe the reason it was done this way, because this tool is ancient, was that when you cancel, you could perform this action. But for many years, I would say decades, Blender has had the inset tool, which is, hey, why is the inset and holding control moving it in a different direction? That's not, I never noticed. How are you supposed to snap then? If you inset and then control is moving it up and down. Control is for snapping. Why is it changing the depth? Is that new? People, let me know. That's inconsistency I'm not quite fond of. Okay. Next. Garbage says, yo, good idea to add the changelog here. How would, nice, thanks for the feedback. How would the VSE retiming work with scene strips? Will it render the frames regularly and interpolate from there, or will it render whole new frames from the start? That's a really good question. I have, I'm not sure. No, I wouldn't even assume anything, but I would assume it just tries to round to a frame and it probably re-render the same frame, which is not ideal. But yeah, what you see is what you get. But please, hey, try that. Okay, the next question. Pablo, how did the right-click select idea for Sculpt vertex displacement came to fruition, and did all votes count equally? No, I don't. I don't think well, votes counting equally is both a problem and a good thing about right-click select or this kind of website of making a poll in general, is that the fact that someone that you make a poll and someone that has worked in the industry for 30 years can vote, and someone that is just started using Blender yesterday and is just doesn't even have an experience, like, I don't know, a 12-year-old that maybe has a great future but doesn't have the experience of the tool working in different environments, whatever, have the same vote, you know, like you can see the idea is 50-50 because the 12-year-old and the one with the 30 years experience in the industry have the same vote. It's not ideal, but it shows in big numbers, right? If you have many people asking for something, then it's probably shows at least a bias. The counting of the votes, no, I think it's just the developer that look at the pull at the idea and then just thought, hey, I can make this because he has many votes. So I don't think just the number of votes probably what caught the attention, and also that it maybe wasn't that hard for that developer to implement. What the author should be done to realize the same one, and what should be done to realize the same one, and how could we do if we want to realize another one? Please, I'll give you an example. I don't know if I get it. To realize another one, what? Another right-click select idea. Again, this idea was someone from the community, like Robin. I don't remember seeing many patches from him in the past. It's great that he is getting involved, but I don't think. Let's try not to overwhelm him or her and go and say like, hey, can you implement this and that and that? Let's not scare the new developers away, please. And again, this person doesn't work directly doesn't work for Blender, so it's also not like, hey, you implement this because of the votes. No, not really. It's just someone being nice. Is it known when the Blender extensions platform will come to life? And will it be possible to download add-ons and everything else from Blender itself? So first, would it be possible to download add-ons and everything from Blender itself? That's the idea. The idea is that Blender can, like the platforms itself, the website itself is pretty much nearly done for uploading and downloading stuff. But that's the easy part, right? That a website like that anybody can make. The connecting it with Blender is more interesting, but hasn't been decided yet. The idea is that sometime this year, but the truth is that we are lacking development power. Not only Blender development power, but like web development power. We have these openings for a while now, the senior backend developer, the senior Blender developer, operations manager, but especially the senior backend developer. So developing Blender or 3D applications it's much more niche, right? There is obviously less people than just developing apps or websites. So if you happen to know anybody that you think is, oh, my cousin is amazing in developing apps or web apps, web stuff, or even design like a front end or back end also, or full stack, how they call it, whatever. And you think this person would like to move to Amsterdam to work in cool projects, open source projects. That's the big catch. Open source projects. Please let them know, because we are still looking for people. And right now there's no one working on websites at the moment. I mean, the front end side of things I'm doing, like for the release notes and stuff. The extensions platform was already it was already developed by a developer that had to leave the team, but it is ready to go pretty much now. But there are many other websites that need maintenance, and we don't have people for that. So please, if you know anybody, send them to blender.org/jobs. Next question by 2 minutes ago. I think we can answer. Yeah, I can try to go to the last one and then I reply everything up to this moment. So the first one is by Paul. He says, "Hi Pablo, is it possible to create a shortcut to turn on and off the auto animation button directly from any area? So from the timeline panel, but also from the graph editor or the outliner. One button to rule them all without a mouse movement or click." Have you tried giving it a shortcut? Let's see. So right click, assign shortcut. And what if I choose like I don't know, F8? So yeah, it works. So auto keying's on, 8, auto keying is off. Cool. So I found out that the shortcut works. As you can see, it's on, and here it's off, although this button doesn't update. Fantastic. Okay, let's see if it works. So, you know, in Blender to make things more performant, whenever you are I don't know, drawing something in the viewport, the rest of the UI, most of the time it doesn't update. It tries not to update, you know, if it's not necessary. So, and that's why it happens now that if I run the shortcut to turn it on and off, the button still looks like it's off. But if I move the mouse over, it turns on because it updates the UI. Let's see if it works in the graph editor. Yeah, it also works. Yeah. So that is one way. Right click, add or assign shortcut. Next question. Matthias says, "Hi Pablo and happy Monday." Happy Monday. Someone's happy about Mondays. I have a quick question about the color picker. Not sure if this has been implemented since I last tried, but is it possible to pick colors from outside of Blender? If not, if there is any plans to implement this. No. It's not possible as far as I know. I would love if it was possible. I miss like picking from images, but I like are outside of Blender itself. I'm not sure if this would be, well, I don't know if there's plans. I haven't seen any patches, and I can imagine that it's because it has to be implemented for each platform. The way Windows handles it is different from Linux and different from Mac. So yeah, maybe that was one of the reasons why it's not. But maybe we can ask Harley. He's been working on many of these Windows specific, or at least operating system specific stuff. But it would be cool if at least it's supported in some operating system, or at least in the Windows one, if there is an easy way to get that. At least Windows, which is the most used platform, would be cool. But of course, it would be better if it was in every software. Philip says, hello Pablo, thanks for all the work you do for Blender, both and off the clock. And speaking of your wonderful work, how do you think about the new Blender community sites are going? I spent the last couple of months hanging out and had some thoughts. How do you think the new Blender community sites are going? Which sites? Blender community sites. I spent the last couple of months hanging out and had some thoughts, but was interested on your view of things. Which things? I had some time on my hands. Okay, there you go. What is this? Enable easier communication with the powers that be. First time on the site. Okay, so this is a right-click select post from 2 weeks ago. From 2 months ago. Oh, December 6th. Yeah, I was deeply in... No, I was on holidays, actually, because on the December 7th, when we released Blender, so I was actually working that time. So I noticed a bunch of spam accounts in the scroll. This is not what... Yeah, we have a spam problem. If you go to the... Like, right now, it's much less of a problem. But we have a big spam problem. I think it's mainly because when you log in on this website, we support logging in with other accounts like with Facebook and Google, and these ones are full of spam. Blender ID is fine, so I think in the future we're gonna just stop supporting Facebook and Google login because it's just a spam, like bot spammers. But yeah. I will leave this open. Because there's a bit of a wall of text like you mentioned. So where to report this? Yeah, reporting spam. You can actually report spam from anywhere. You can report post and then you can tag it as spam, and we get a notification. We can remove that. Code critique. Perhaps I should check the FAQ. How about that button there on the left with the question mark? Perhaps that will lead somewhere. Which one? On the left with the question mark. Oh, yeah, no, this is the about. The about page, it's a bit empty at the moment. It just said that we made this website in 2005. 14. Anyway, I will try to get back to this. Please remind me. Same question. Hi, Pablo, how are you doing? Have a nice day. You too. Do you know any news about Blender Liquid smoke simulations? What are the current plans? Not at the moment. As far as I know, there's no plans, unfortunately. The focus on the few developers that actually are or can work on that area, it's on simulations for like the entire geometry node simulations project. That is the next thing to come. But in terms of liquid and smoke simulations or like MantaFlow, unfortunately, I haven't seen any development. Only on add-ons. People want add-ons. People are making add-ons, but those add-ons don't get their way into Blender, unfortunately. 3DI says, hello, I hope you're well. I hope you too. I reported a bug last year, which makes it impossible to rebuild the image from passes if there is a material whose material output has both the surface and the volume input connected. The volume data is lost. It means you can't render water and such. Will it be possible for you to turn an angry green and frighten your colleagues into fixing it? When was this? It was open 12 months ago, also known as 1 year ago. And it has been updated 2 weeks ago. Bumpety bump 3 months ago. And I'm not sure I can do more than this. Has it been updated though? Because 2-3 weeks ago well, even nowadays the team is still going into this Gitty merging situation, moving from one platform to another. So this could have gone unnoticed. This one not, the one 3 months ago. Although it's 1st of December, which is 1 week before the release, so it's beacon 4. Not adding excuses here, just trying to give some context. Can you, I mean, instead of just checking like, hey, can someone look at this? It's a bit of a nightmare. If a better comment than this, than just saying, hey, can anybody look at this? Can you can say, confirmed, that works, that it's still an issue in 3.4.1, 3.3 LTS, 3.5, 3.6 alpha, or like just to give a bit more information and to show that you also, put your time into researching what changed and what can go wrong. And Omar was involved in this even. Yeah, but no, I can't do much more than that. Maybe with the revisiting of the compositor for real time, get some love. It's so ugly. This is ugly, disgusting. It's white, it's cold and ick. Hi Pablo, I have an idea. Maybe it would be good in every stream to spend 20 seconds before answering the comment to explain people that you have a limited number of developers and you already have a plan to year ahead to prevent spend minutes to answering the same type of questions. Well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? I mean, yes, maybe this could be one way. However, I like to get to the question and then explain it, because every time I get a chance to say why this, why something else, but also new developers can look at a question and say, hey, this gets asked a lot. And the core developers of Blender are working in making Blender stable, right? Or fixing Blender, or making huge, more big picture projects. Maybe this is motivating for others to work on it. New developers. Hi again, just a quick question. How do you tell which notifications will you read on this website? When clicking on the bell, the notification list seems to offer no indication of which are new, odd, and read. Even if I click on a notification, I know it's the only one I haven't read. The icon still shows the new notifications. Yep. So there is currently no way to do that. There is support for it in the code. We need to work more on this website. And if one day, we've been discussing even, what if right click select, it one day becomes part of Blender.org, right? Like some kind of website that is officially in Blender.org for polls, for proposals. But yeah, we need to, this website, we make it with Francesco on our spare time, and it's a bit behind in some features like this. The only way to mark some of these notifications as read is by marking all of them as read, which is not very convenient. As you can see, I have 156 notifications. Probably now more even with because I made the blog post. And how many more questions do I have? Okay, 2 more. Hey Pablo, please, homogeneous subdivision while for displacement. So this kind of displacement. Oh, instead of experimental subdivision. Yeah. I wish I could code. I wish I could code. Yeah, this would be super nice to have. Hola Pablo, I hope you're doing well. I noticed that in Blender 3.4, the right-click context menu in edit mode is not snapping to the last option when used, whereas other right-click menus can. This issue is a bit annoying if you're used to it working. Oh, that's a huge bug. Please report. Well, check that it hasn't been fixed in 3.6, but otherwise, please report it. Yeah, it should be fixed. Absolutely. Other than that, I think we are coming to a wrap. The camera didn't shut down in the whole episode, which is exciting because I have to do this again in a bit in Spanish for Blender Hoy, the Spanish version of Blender Today. So other than that, I hope you liked what you've seen today here. I hope you had a good time. I hope you start the week in a great way, as in with new features. Is the retiming tool everything you ever dreamed about the video sequence editor? What other big tool are you missing in the video sequence editor? I know, not in terms of the tool, but I miss, for example, I would like to have a media bin. That would be amazing. Kind of a big project though. I think I would also like to have more of in the preview, like have another preview where you can like mark input and output of the active media bin item and then plonk it into the timeline. That would be pretty neat. Those are huge projects though, but the retiming tool was also a big project and it still can be improved. So I'm glad that there is love being given to the video sequence editor. And Sculpt mode by this generous soul that is Robin, and much more coming up. Next week, next week is March already. Gee, March 6th is gonna be March 6th. It's crazy. We are, next month, it's Blender 3.5. It's gonna come out. So this week I have to start working on the release notes page for 3.5. That will get me more acquainted with those tools. The new features in 3.5 are gonna be huge. Real-time compositor and BD maps for sculpting. Other than that, 3.6, all the rage. 100 commits this week, of which 50 something were fixes. So we're gonna have some of that fixing love until 3.5 comes out. Please report any issues if you find any, so that we can all enjoy a more stable Blender. Other than that, I think I'm gonna be heading out because there's a lot to do this week. Thanks for watching. I hope you had a great week. Great show. Any tip for a beginner? It's one of the comments. Okay, before closing. Any tip for a beginner? Yes, start doing. Don't get drawn in tutorials. Tutorials are cool and all, but don't just stop at tutorials. Make your own stuff, and only once you're making, you're gonna find out what you want to learn. Don't go in with a tutorial from like, okay, the donut tutorial, it exposes you to a bunch of features, but you should also make your own. Start making your own, because, and then if you're run into like, okay, I don't know how to do this, then go search for a tutorial for that. Other than that, I will see you again next week, same place, same time, for another episode of Blender Today live. Watch your ear holes, because all right, have a great week. See you next week, same place, same time.